Well, I'm asking what responsibility you would project on yourself if that happened. That's all I'm asking.
Again, nobody's above the law, Dan.
All right. JR also told us a little story about how he got that job at higher education. This is what he said on the air.
Dan, on February 13th, or thereabouts of 2008, around 7 o'clock in the evening, I was scheduled to have a meeting with the chief of staff at the time because I was his deputy. He was
the governor's chief of staff.
That's correct. And he was telling me about this reorganization. The next day or the day after, I received a call. My secretary said J.R. Frank Caprio was on the line. I said, please put it through. And I took the call, and from the outset, I thought it was Treasurer Caprio. And finally, he interrupted me, and he said, no, JR, it's Judge Caprio calling. And this was the first time I ever had a discussion with Judge Caprio or any interaction with him whatsoever. He felt badly about what happened with the way I was treated and the way the situation was handled upon the reorganization with Ms. Nigerian coming in to take over my position.
Were you badly handled?
Well, it was sudden and it was a little shocking, and I felt it was unjustified.
What was the nature of the conversation?
Generally, it was there may be an opportunity here at Higher Ed. We'd like to have you. We think you bring talent with you, and we could use your skills here.
So, what was your take when JR told that story that your father had a hand in his hiring? Do you have a reaction to that?
My father helps a lot of people. He helped J.R. Pagliarini when he was being dismissed from one job. I'll let that speak for itself.
Have you been able to confirm that your dad had a hand in hiring J.R. Pagliarini?
From what I've heard, it was that the commissioner of higher ed was the one that was contacting J.R., and then my dad made a follow-up call. I read that in one of the newspaper articles also.
So everything you know about your father's involvement in this is from the newspaper?
Well, Dan, when you talk about my dad, first of all, you know I love my dad. All right. You know he's a very busy person. You know he runs a busy law firm. You know he owns 2 busy restaurants that he oversees. You know that he's the part-time chief judge of the Providence Municipal Court. You know that he's the volunteer chairman of the Board of Governors of Higher Education. You know that he's married, he has 5 kids, he has 7 grandkids. So the perception that for some reason he's sitting next to me and he and I are talking over every little detail of everything that he does all day just is not the way he runs his life or the way I run my life.
All right. Well, so I'm guessing that little resume was offered as a buoy to your response in the governor's debate here a couple of Mondays ago when Jim Hummel asked you this question.
Have you had a discussion with him about any of this directly?
When you say any of this?
Peter Manfredo, J.R. Pagliarini, all the controversy surrounding your father. Have you had any direct discussion with him about that?
I have not. What I'm doing is running for governor.
And so you've had no conversations with him at all about it?
I have not.
And so you don't know whether he's going to speak publicly about it?
I do not know.
Okay.
Jim.
You know, it pains me because we've known each other for a while and I like you. But, you know, I said the other day that either you can't tell the truth or you're slow. How could you offer that kind of answer in a debate? Why wouldn't you give some perspective on why you and your father aren't talking about the governor's race, other than this, oh, he's so busy? Everybody knows, everybody understands what's at stake in a governor's race, how important it is to everybody. And when your father, for better or for worse, for legitimate or illegitimate reasons, is entangled in your campaign, it is impossible for anybody to digest that you and he don't talk about these matters. Now, you're going to assert one more time that with all of these stories, the Messalella hiring, which frankly I thought was a swing and a miss, I said so, the Manfredo hiring, which wasn't a swing and a miss, and this J.R. Pagliarini entanglement, that you and he have had no conversations about this at all whatsoever?
Dan, I'm going from pre-dawn until late at night every day, 7 days a week, with my campaign team and out there with Rhode Islanders every day. And as I said, my dad has a very, very busy schedule with all the things that he's involved with. The times I do call my dad, here's what I call him about. I'll give him an update on my son Frankie, who's playing fall baseball. The season's just wrapping up now. What he did in his games. Those are the kind of conversations that I have with my dad with the limited times that I can track him down and he tracks me down. and we can talk about things.
Do you know why he didn't show up at the last Board of Higher Education meeting?
I do not.
Speaking of family, your campaign suggests that Link Chafee went after family when the issue of a grant, pretty large rub and tug element, was unearthed. Some $20,000, I guess, that you as a state senator was able to secure for the French American school that was just starting up that your son was attending. You don't really think that that's an attack on family rather than an attack on the state grant program and an inconsistency about the kind of government that you say you're going to lead versus the kind of act that you were involved with in what was a procurement of self-interested money, are you?
Well, you have a community asset there. That's one of the examples of everything that's very, very right with our state, where we have a nationally known French American school, where there's only a few of those across the country, and it was at the early stages of its development, where the city of Providence, the state, and other charitable entities were stepping forward to make sure the school had sound footing. They took an old schoolhouse that needed to be updated with fire code and everything else.
Did it dawn on you to say, it's not good government for me to procure state taxpayer money for a school that my son is attending? It's just not good government. It reeks of the kind of nepotistic thing that we really, when we run for governor 10 years from now, are going to speak out against.
Well, just the nature of the question is one way you're looking out 10 years from a point in time. I mean, I'm going to stand by.
I guess I asked the question because I'm trying to figure out when you got your ethics.
No, but
when you got your good government ethics, because this stinks. A state grant for $20,000 procured that would help you, your family, anybody, has everything and all to do with what stinks with government today. And so I'm asking you, when did you develop your ethics, Frank? Because that is bad government. Don't you agree?
Dan, I'll stand by my activities in the state legislature and other things that I've done in my public service. Again, this is a community asset that serves all the people of the state. It's done a tremendous job in our community. It employs many people. It's grown from a handful of kids to close to 200 children.
Would you do it again?
Dan, I'll stand by my actions.
I'm asking you right now. Would you advocate for taxpayer money to be paid for a facility where you or your family in any way, shape, or form were involved? Is that the kind of leadership that you want to execute for the state of Rhode Island?
Dan, I'm going to make decisions as governor that are best for the people of Rhode Island, period.
Are you going to get off the script for the last 5 minutes of this conversation? Or let me ask you this: do you enjoy going back to the script, or is this just your default position where you just don't seem to be very flexible with any kind of answer? Do you understand that people are listening to this thinking, God Almighty, it's like pulling teeth, or is this just practiced and it's years of practice, and that's all you're going to give the people of Rhode Island through this interview? That's it? By rote, standard, default, declarative, unattached, non-responsive answers? If a judge was listening to this back and forth in a courtroom, the judge would turn to you and say, as the witness, answer the questions. I guess you're just going to refuse and try to run all the way to Election Day, not answering the questions? We'll leave it out there. By the way, I want to thank you because we've gone the whole hour with you not saying a doggone word about the kitchen table. The bills and the kitchen table have been absent from this conversation. I would have jumped out the second floor if I had to hear that one more time. But you are running a new ad, the car ad, and I find this to be interesting. Let's play it real quick. We don't have it? Okay. Why don't we come back and we'll give Frank a chance to talk about... Unfortunately, we're out of time. Only got about half a minute. My thought on this new car ad that you're doing is at least it's a breath of fresh air. It's a high burnout factor, though, don't you think? You know, telling the story of pushing the keys back and the like.
It's what happened.
Is that going to run all the way through the election, or what's the strategy now? Put it this way, will there be a shove it ad between now and Election Day?
Watch your TV.
20 seconds on why you ought to be elected.
because I got to go up to that state house every day and fight to get some jobs back in the state. I wish we could have talked more about the issues. I know you like to say where are the issues, and I got endorsed by the Providence Journal, Providence Business News, even written up in the New York Times based on the real issues that I've been talking about this whole campaign.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for coming in. Frank Caprio, State Treasurer. Election Day is next Tuesday.